Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about some more Colosseum because the constellation for this week is very problematic, at least for me, and honestly, probably for most defenses because of what it does. Now, when it comes to Constellation, a lot of people tend to overlook it and overlook what it actually does for heroes, but some constellations might actually change the way that some lineups interact with another, and I'm going to give you perfect examples as to why. Now, it also may change the way that your defense and offense works. Perfect example is this hero lineup that I have right here. This is actually a very common but very solid lineup that I often talk about because it's used a lot in the top Colosseum, and it's just overall very solid. Now, in today's or this week's constellation, you got human or beastman, and it boosts intelligence plus 10% and magic attack plus 25%. Technically speaking, that's just going to be for magic dealers. And if you go to all the heroes, there's really only a few that are going to take full advantage of it. Many people don't actually think this, but Rose Knight is actually one of the heroes that will benefit because her ultimate, when she throws her shield, that actually does magic damage, so she will benefit from it. Not so much Berserker, but the biggest one, and the one that causes the biggest issue here, is Lore Weaver. Now, you might be thinking, well, why is that an actual issue if she's going to get a boost? Here's the problem. If you take a look at all of these heroes, there's a couple of good ones that you might use here and there. Like you might use Sea Squire, you might use Incinerator, etc. But they're not real mainstays. And in this lineup specifically, the reason that this lineup is so good is because you have two tanks, you have a support in Witchdoll, you have Grove Guardian as pretty much mainly damage, and then you have Lore Weaver as your healer. Now, they all work really well together, and you might think, well, only one of them is there for damage, but the thing is, the Berserkers of the world, Witch Dolls, etc., even Rose Knight, they do a decent amount of damage. So when you add it up into a complete team, this is a really solid team. Also, one of the biggest advantages of this lineup is Witch Doll. Why exactly do I say that? Well, let me go ahead and show you something real quick. If you go over to Lore Weaver and her stats, you see that her intelligence is 1264. Keep that in mind, 1264. You go over to Witch Doll and it's 1268. Only 4 points higher, but what it does is that when you're looking at this lineup, and when people are going to be using assassins, like for instance, a Demon Slayer, Femme Fatale, or both, right? When they jump, they typically go towards the hero that has the highest intelligence. Now, if she wasn't here and it was somebody, I don't know, let's see, let's just put her, for example, right? They'll actually jump over to the Lore Weaver, which is not something you want because that's your healer, that's how you stay alive. But when you add Witch Doll to this lineup, it does two things. Not only does it keep those assassins away from your healer, it actually makes them go to the Witch Doll and help your Grove Guardian turn around and help kill those assassins. Now, where in all of that is the problem now? Well, as you remembered here, it says it boosts intelligence plus 10%. So that means is that now, when these assassins are going to be jumping over, unfortunately, they're not going to go to this Witch Doll. They're actually going to go to the Lore Weaver. And essentially, it's going to make this lineup much more vulnerable. Usually, you can counter it with putting another hero that might get the same boost. Like usually, you might pull like a Petite Devil, etc. But unfortunately, this go around, that boost is high enough to actually put her above many other heroes. So that's a problem. That's really a problem, and it's mainly a defensive problem. When you're attacking, you can kind of work around it because you're the one that's going to dictate what lineup is going to be going up against what. But when you're defending, you have one static lineup, and people can work around that. So, you see Celica, perfect example. We're going to go ahead and show you exactly how this works out now under this constellation and how it changes how teams interact with each other. Usually, the way that this would go down is Demon Slayer will jump over to the Witch Doll, Femme Fatale will jump over to the Witch Doll, and then the Witch Doll and Grove Guardian would tag team them and pretty much take them out. Now, because the Lore Weaver has this boost this week, they're not going to go over to the Witch Doll side. They're going to go straight to the Lore Weaver, take out the Lore Weaver, and then that's pretty much the match. Like, that's it. So let's go ahead and see it in action. I shall mention, though, before we start, there is one condition in where this can go really awful in your side. If the Berserker gets off her stun when the Demon Slayer is going to jump and it makes him stay on your side instead of jumping, and it disrupts that jump, that's bad for you. Okay, so let's go ahead and get it started. Alright, so the beginning is going to be the most important part. Are they going to be able to both jump over to the Lore Weaver, or are they going to get interrupted? There goes Demon Slayer. What about Femme Fatale? And there she goes. Now, very important. Look where they're at. Demon Slayer, Femme Fatale are over at the Lore Weaver's position and targeting her. That is 100% not what you want to see with this team, because once your healer goes down, or at least in this case their healer goes down, they go down. Let's see it unfold. Now, if she gets off a heal, that might have extended the battle, but because they jumped over, the Lore Weaver is gone. That means that they have no healing going forward, and now it's just a matter of time before these assassins do what they gotta do. Now, the next thing is right here. They jumped over, they took down the Witch Doll. So not only is the Witch Doll gone, the Lore Weaver is gone. And if this Lore Weaver of mine gets a heal off, it's going to be a complete wipeout for them. They actually do get the stun off, but in this case, I'm actually able to get the heal off. And this team, which would never actually win against that other team, completely crushed it just because of that Constellation boost and the way that it makes the interaction change only for this week. Okay, only for this week. Now, in this next example, I'm going to be showing you another one. Unfortunately, I'm going to be hitting back just because everybody else in front of me is from my guild, so we don't hit each other. But we have Ojo here, which has a fairly similar team, except that it's got Petite Devil over Grove Guardian. That's actually not a very rare team. It's used fairly often. But I want to show you guys this, okay? Now, I already showed you that Witch Doll's intelligence is just a bit higher than Lore Weaver's. But take a look at Petite Devil's. Petite Devil is 1357, which, if you compare it, that's actually quite a bit higher. It's about 100 points higher. But will it actually matter when it comes to interaction? Remember, these assassins are going to go to their highest intelligence. In this case, you would think it's Petite Devil. But remember, this 10% boost of Lore Weaver really does a disservice to her. So let's go ahead and see this in action and see how it all shapes out. Remember, the beginning is going to be the most important part. Are they going to go ahead and take down the Petite Devil, or are they going to start going straight to your healer, the Lore Weaver? And I don't know if you maybe you missed it, but that Lore Weaver is already dead. Femme Fatale went right over and took her down right after the Demon Slayer jumped over. So why did that happen when Petite Devil is clearly the highest intelligence hero that they have? It is because of the Constellation and that plus 10% intelligence boost. So once that Lore Weaver is gone, the effectiveness of this team is just completely destroyed. Take a look at this. Now the whole team is dead. The Witch Doll is done, their tanks are done, and that's it. The effectiveness is pretty much zero. So teams like this, where you can actually work around it now because you can target the Lore Weaver straight away, are going to be so much easier to take down this week only. So if you have a Demon Slayer, for instance, this is the time to use him a lot during this week because you're going to be targeting the Lore Weaver right away. Now, there's a couple of things that you can do to combat this. For instance, you can use Jonah on a team, and he's gonna have higher intelligence. You can also use Incinerator, and she'll have higher intelligence. The problem with using those though on a team is that you are not gonna want those to be the target of the assassins, because they just simply don't have as much HP or defense to take on two assassins at the same time. So for instance, if I do something like this, that way I can ensure that the assassins go to the Incinerator. Incinerator cannot take the hits as well as the Witch Doll can, so it's pretty much just giving them a free kill. So just keep that stuff in mind. Lore Weaver is a great hero in Colosseum, but this week, even though she gets a boost per se, it's actually doing her a disservice because of how everything works out. Now, keep this in mind though. I'm only going off of when your heroes are gold. If, for whatever reason, you have, let's say, Witch Doll gold, but maybe Lore Weaver like a green or blue grade, then at that point, the intelligence of the Lore Weaver could actually be lower, and it could actually work to your advantage having that Lore Weaver lower grade. Now, I'm just talking about if they're all the same grade. Like, my Lore Weaver is gold, I can't just choose to downgrade her to green or whatnot. Like, she's just stuck the way that she is now. So unfortunately, this constellation for this week doesn't really bode well for me, but it does bode well for the team that I usually like to use, which is this one right here. If you do not have Femme Fatale, you can also sub him in for Shade. So that's also going to be a very, very solid team. So just keep that in mind for the Colosseum for this week specifically. Hopefully you guys enjoyed and learned something about the Colosseum. I really enjoy the Colosseum, not only because it does take strategy. A lot of people might say that the Colosseum is just random and there's no strategy to it, but that's actually very much false. It does take a lot of strategy. It takes a lot of knowing the heroes and what they do and how to counter them. Of course, there isn't always like the same result. There is randomness to it because of crits, etc., and things like this, where the constellation might change the actual interaction of heroes. So there is a randomness to it at times, but if you know what you're doing, you're usually going to do fairly well in the Colosseum. But if you want to see some more Colosseum videos, let me know down in the comment section. If you have any questions that you might want to have answered, let me know in the comment section. But yeah, appreciate you guys for watching, and until later, bye.